Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So we have a pretty full agenda today with a number of speakers. This is the session on libraries and education. And I want to thank Shani Evenstein for what?
Can she see us? Oh, hi.
She can't. You have to come over here to say hi. She can't see you. She can see me, but she can't see you. So after we're finished, come over and say hello to her. But there she is on the big screen. We're going to do introductions in just a moment. I'm Marilee Prophet from OCLC, and I'm going to be moderating the panel today. And we are joined by two people, perhaps three, who will be coming in via Zoom to talk to us. So here's what we're going to be doing today. Taking a couple minutes to introduce ourselves, then getting to know the panelists in a little more depth, followed by a panel discussion, and then hopefully, if there's some time, some Q&A with you all fine people, but if not, you have had an opportunity to meet some more Wikibrarians and learn about their great work. So let's see. So we're going to meet our panelists. So I've introduced myself. In addition to my work at OCLC, I'm also the chair of the Wikimedia and Libraries user group. If you are interested in the intersection between Wikimedia projects and libraries, please do join our user group. You can find us on Meta. Some people feel like they don't belong because they're librarians. Some people who are librarians feel like they don't belong because they're not Wikimedians. If you are interested in this topic, you belong here. So please do join our group. I'll turn things over. So Trudy is next. You want to say a few words, Trudy?
Good afternoon. My name is Trudy Jacobson. I'm the...
This is being recorded.
My name is Trudy Jacobson. I'm the head of the Information Literacy Department at the University at Albany in Albany, New York. And I've done a couple of slides just to give you a little bit of information about that'll help to inform your understanding of the answers that I give later. I teach a credit-bearing information literacy / metaliteracy course, and I have sort of had a perfect storm after finding Marilee's book and Kelly's chapter, which was Minding the Gaps and has to do with the gender gap. So and you can see here, I have a credit course. I used Wikipedia. My students became editors using the Wikimedia Education program. We incorporated Metaliteracy, which includes learner roles, so participant, author, producer, and sort of learning domains. So not just cognitive, but also affective, how they feel about it, and metacognitive. And 3 of the information literacy frames from ACRL, and those are up there that really informed our conversation. So metaliteracy, if you're not familiar with it, is a research area of mine, and it extends beyond information literacy, focusing on knowledge, abilities, and attitudes for people to be responsible, ethical producers of information, not just consumers, both individually and collaboratively. And so it's something that I think, as I've been hearing people talk in the education track, there's a lot of overlap with metaliteracy.
Thank you, Trudy. Next, we have Sylvia. And Sylvia, I am going to switch over so that people can see you. Hold on just a second here. Okay, Sylvia, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Sylvia, and I am the People and Humanities Librarian in El Colegio de Mexico, which is University of Higher Learning in Mexico City. And last year we conducted the first Wikipedian in residence in an academic library in Latin America project. And I hope to share with you what we've learned from implementing a Wikipedian in residence in Latin America. So glad to be here.
Thank you. Next we have Orly. And I got to bring her back here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello all. I'm Oli Simon from Israel, a wiki librarian in Seoul. I'm here for two initiatives. I'm a director for user services at the National Library of Israel and a lecturer in the MLS program of David Yalin College for Education. Actually, I owe my own Wikimania to Shani, who introduced me to this fantastic world 6 years ago. In 2019, I took the OCLC online course, Wikipedia and Libraries, Better Together, where I met you, Merrily. Both Shani and Merrily are a great inspiration for me. For the last 6 years at the National Library, we hold Wikipedia workshop once a month that are open to the public. I also lead a few projects on content contribution to Wiki Commons and Wikidata. Regarding my initiative in the field of education and libraries, which we are discussing today, I teach the course titled Digital Libraries, Wikipedia, Librarians, and Libraries at the Information Science Master Degree Program. The course encourages librarians to take a proactive role in the partnership between libraries and Wikimedia initiatives. I am also a global ambassador of One Lib, One Ref, and led the campaign in Israel in 2018 and 19, where we placed fourth globally both years. Finally, I'm a member of the Wikipedia Library User Group Steering Committee, which Merrily heads. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Orly. And then Paolo, who doesn't seem to be with us, so I'm just going to skip over that for right now. So we wanted to have a panel discussion, and, oh, I'm sorry, Kelly,
I have
you're,
a slide. I think you zoomed past it. It was after.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It was after Sylvia's.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and all, oh, there we go, okay.
Hi, I'm Kelly Doyle. I'm the Open Knowledge Coordinator at the Smithsonian Institution, but previously I was the Wikipedian in residence for gender equity at West Virginia University Libraries in the U.S., and I was the first Wikipedian in an academic library to focus exclusively on the gender gap. And one of the projects that I sort of pioneered during that time, it was a 3-year position, was working with student groups around service learning and editing Wikipedia pages about women for service learning credit. So service learning, if you're not familiar with it, is a concept that students can earn academic credit and hours towards graduation in their undergraduate degrees through a ton of different things, volunteering, interning, things like that. And so we turned Wikipedia into a service learning project specifically around gender, so that student groups who were interested in gender or student groups that were female-oriented or female-focused could edit Wikipedia articles not only as part of the community of their group within the university, but also for credit to graduate. And those students really enjoyed that project, and it was supported by the libraries, and librarians helped provide resources, helped assist with training. And I'm no longer there, but these projects are still sustaining, which is a great part of having Wikipedians in residence in academic libraries, is to help train librarians about the possibilities of Wikipedia, especially around the gender gap and closing a lot of the systemic issues on Wikipedia through the power of libraries, and in an academic library case with the students that are based there as well.
Fantastic. So I wanted to go, Paolo is here. Let's go. Let me hold on just a second. I'm struggling with the technology here. Paolo, will you take a second and introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Paolo from Portugal, from Madeira Island specifically. I am a researcher at the Research Center of the University of Lisbon, related with the European, specifically Lusophone language, Portuguese-speaking countries. I'm also a member of Wikimedia Portugal and the long-term volunteer at Wikimedia project. And I'm also representing Miguel Mimoso, which is also a member of community and a member of Wikimedia Portugal. And he used to be our liaison at the National Library of Portugal. He is now relocated to the Nova SBA Library, which is the Faculty of Economics of the Nova University. Basically, one of the most trendy universities in Portugal now, with a brand new campus.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go to the discussion points. From our panelists, we'd like to be able to hear a little bit about how you got started and if you had to convince somebody that this was important. So Kelly, you came into a position where it was pretty defined already. What was important for you to be able to persuade your institution that this was something that was important, or any tips you have for getting started? And Trudy, do you want to say a few things about just getting started?
Sure. Yeah. So I mentioned.
If you could use the mic. Thank you.
All right, so I had mentioned Kelly's chapter, which came just as I was starting to change my course to be an online course rather than in person, and I was sort of flailing around trying to find things. Luckily, I don't have to convince my administration. I control my own credit-bearing courses. What I did have to do was try to convince my students. And that was, I think, a much harder job than convincing the administration would have been, because they've been told, do not use Wikipedia. And here I was asking them to, throughout this course, to be editing in Wikipedia, and there really was quite a wall that had to be broken down. I do have to say your chapter actually played a role because there were a lot of women in the course, and we were talking about information has value. And I think they were starting to put the pieces together.
So I would say for me, I came into the role, it had already been defined. The Dean of Libraries at WVU was really committed to this, and I think I had a unique experience that there was a lot of an administrative support for Wikipedia work around gender within the libraries, but that did not trickle down to our librarians necessarily. It was a very new concept to them, so it took a lot of time to work with librarians and just sort of help define how my role would work within the work that they were doing and the things that they cared about and were dedicated to. I will say that a lot did come around and they saw the value in that, and like I said, programs are sustaining still while I'm not there, but culture change takes a lot of time. And proving the value of this work, as all of you in the audience know, is not always the easiest. But I would say what really worked for me, especially in an academic library where there's students involved and you're there to serve students and an academic body, meeting our students where they are. As you mentioned, our students broadly have been told not to use Wikipedia, but they are. We know that they are. And I think breaking down for them what Wikipedia is, how to use it, and to sort of instruct them through that process of the best uses of Wikipedia and how it can help them for what it is as a tertiary source, to look at the resources that are used and do research off Wikipedia. It's a yes and situation. It's yes to Wikipedia and yes to academic resources as well. And teaching them that through line became really, really valuable. And that is what the librarians that I worked with and who eventually came around to this work, that is where we met in the middle. Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll go next to Sylvia, because you had a couple of slides. So if you want to unmute and talk to those.
I would love to build upon what my colleagues have said, so I can't really hear. I'm so sorry about that. I just wanted to mention some of the SDGs that we considered for our project, and I think that was kind of a way of convincing our superiors. Can you hear what I'm saying, or is it just me?
The sound quality is not super great, and I don't know what can be done about that. Orly sounds really good, and Paolo, we're getting some dropout from you, so I'm not sure exactly what can be done about that, but I'm so sorry.
Maybe I can write it. Like, can you show the slide, maybe?
We can see the slides, yeah.
And can you see typing?
Yes, we're on the SDG slides.
So, the SDGs we focus on are reduced inequality, number 10, gender equality, number 5, and chief justice, which is number 16. And we created 3 different edifacons that were concentrated on those 3 SDGs. And I think that, I'm not sure, I don't think this is working. I can't see the edifacons. Let's see.
Okay, I'm gonna go to, why don't we go to Orly? I'm sorry I can't hear you very well, Sylvia. Now we have Paolo on there twice. Okay, go ahead, Orly.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So actually, also, I didn't hear what my colleague said, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. But actually, answer your question, actually, it wasn't too difficult for me. Both organizations, the library and the college, are very much devoted to open access as their basic mission. At the beginning, we hear claims like we want the user to visit our site, we don't want to spread our assets. However, after a while, the usage data did the job. The numbers were very impressive. For about 4,000 images we uploaded to Wikicommons, we gained millions of page views. And it was very easy for the management to understand that those numbers can only be achieved if you are present at one of the most visited sites in the world. And in addition, I believe that the two key factors that contributed to the success of my initiatives are the both jobs that I hold. As I said, I'm one of the directors of the National Library, and I'm also a recognized lecturer in the college. I'm pointing that not to be modest, but in order to emphasize 2 of the key factors that I think are needed. One is gaining the management commitment to involvement of librarians within Wikipedia, and then getting the engagement of professional leaders in the field. Both of them are very helpful if you want others to join you in your ventures. In the college, the idea of having a full semester course on Wikipedia as part of librarians' academic studies was very well accepted by the head of the program. They perceived it not only as an important subject to be included in the curriculum, but also as a very innovative way of teaching. Librarians, as well as teachers, I believe, are placed in a very critical position as agent knowledge for pupils and for students. As so, I believe that knowing Wikipedia and other Wikimedia projects is very essential to the librarian training. It is one of the main issues in our professional discipline. So a qualified librarian should, for my belief, have a very deep understanding of, and also a basic attitude to what Wikipedia is. And I think as a power user, but also as a content contributor, I think it is an a very organic connection between Wikipedia, libraries, and librarians.
Okay, thank you. Paolo, let's try your sound again and see if we have some better luck this time.
Yeah, testing. Is it okay?
It seems better this time. Before you were dropping out quite a bit.
All
So
right.
can you talk to us about how you got started and if you had any barriers, and if so, how you overcame those?
Well, I was in the Wikimedia project before starting with libraries. I started in 2017 with the research group I was in. I introduced them to the Wikimedia project, specifically to Commons and Wikisource as projects to do where we can introduce into our own projects of digitalization and book production. As for Miguel Mimoso, it was his own quest to search for Wikimedia in Portugal. It was difficult in the beginning for him because Wikimedia Portugal was kind of unreachable at the time. But he managed to get. But it was his own initiative when he was at the National Library to reach to Wikimedia projects, because he felt it was part. The National Library needed to be where the people were, and people were reading Wikipedia, so it made all sense to get there. Initially, it was difficult to get into Wikipedia mainly because of the lack of documentation and collision with the existing community, of course. But when you found Wikidata, it was much more easier, and we have been working with the National Library and other libraries in Portugal since then, using basically as a backbone Wikidata, because it's kind of native, as Orly, I believe it's Orly. Yes, Harley just said, it's native to Wikidata, it's native to librarians to work with Wikidata kind of environment.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to switch back to the slides for just a second and go, whoops, I'm sorry. Sorry guys, I'm like struggling with the tech here. Okay, let's turn to best practices and talk about what you think. So some of us are further along in our journeys, others are kind of just starting out. But what observations do you have about what you would observe are best practices for incorporating Wikipedia into librarianship and library teaching? So we'll start with Trudy.
I think that when we're teaching information literacy, there's not always an opportunity to have students actually put it into practice other than research-based for a paper. And I think that if there is a way to do that, that would be, I think, a best practice. We talk a lot about lifelong learning. And the research that students do for their courses is not always the type of research they're going to be doing throughout their lives. And so I think that as librarians, if we're not teaching our own courses, we may be able to facilitate some sort of a program with the faculty members who have their students for longer periods of time. So this is not necessarily a best practice, but maybe an optimistic practice.
I think one of the main things that I took away from that experience was thinking about Wikipedia literacy versus Wikipedia editing, and thinking about if librarians and students understand Wiki in the way that we do, but they never edit, there's still a lot of value there. And there's not, unfortunately, not really a great way to capture that, and not really a great way to get, grant funding from that. That's really not built into the way grants work, is providing this literacy. You can't say, we accomplished 100,000 edits or whatever the case may be, but I found this to be really valuable to cultivate understanding and why this matters, and that took up the bulk of my time there, of 3 years, for getting a critical mass of our librarians to really feel like they understood why Wikipedia mattered in their landscape, in the students' landscape, in the information literacy landscape, and especially driving home to students that Wikipedia is not complete. I understand, we know that, and maybe we feel reluctant to share that with a greater public, but I think that that's something that's really important, especially for librarians to understand, one, so that they think about contributing and compelled to do so, but for students to use Wikipedia appropriately, I think they need to understand that it's not complete. I found in my work a lot that students go to Wikipedia thinking that they might want to, write a paper on this topic, and if there's not an article for it, the mentality is sort of, oh, well, it's not on Wikipedia, so it's not important. And so I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding among students, and I found great joy in walking through that journey with students, especially around the gender gap. But the literacy had to come way before any actually editing could.
Okay, let's try, so Sylvia has a new, she's trying something new, so let's see if we can hear you any better, Sylvia.
Okay, so can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Or not?
I can. Can you? Okay, yes.
Great. Also, I'm going to share my screen, so maybe that will help, explain whatever. So one of the things that worked for us is creating reusable kits. We actually got this idea from Wikimedia Argentina, and by what I mean by reusable kits is that, let me just see if I can change that. That's not the way I wanted to do it. Sorry. What is it? Can I change this? Well, what I mean is that we created like a kit of how do you do a sticker, how do you do a poster, and all like the questionnaire you do for people to register. All those things are models for our editathons, and we just change some of the parts of those images or those questionnaires, and it's easier to do our events, given that we have those kits. And also they have been useful for other universities that want to do an editathon. They get the editable versions of our posters, and then they can, just use them. Another thing that has been useful for us is we have created a website with some metadata that helps navigate all the resources in Spanish that there are to to create a Wikidata element or maybe a Wikipedia website. And I think that this has been very useful because although Wikimedia Commons has a lot of materials, they're not always very findable because they don't have good metadata. So I feel like this Omega-based website will help others to find specifically what they're looking for. And another thing that we feel that has been useful is that we have opened our class plans. So pretty much what we use and how much time do we need for each activity. And I feel like this has been of inspiration for other colleagues that don't have to just reinvent the wheel, but actually take our class plans and adapt them to their own needs or wishes. And finally, I feel like we
we had a information literacy program, and we just looked at which Wikimedia activities would fit in each one of those phases of the information literacy program. And I'm not sure if you're seeing this, but there's like workflow of all the activities we do, and we just saw how some Wikipedia related activities would fit to better clarify certain topics, such as ethic use of information, or also data, how is data structured. Wikidata has been really useful. So for data literacy, we have also used Wikidata. That's everything from my side.
Thank you. I just want to point out that these slides are, they're Google Slides, and they're linked to from the session program. So Sylvia and others have a lot of links, which we very much appreciate. And so you'll be able to get to these materials from the program if you haven't found that already. I think it's down at the very bottom of the session. Let's see, best practices. Why don't we go to Orly next? I think you need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So are we talking about best practices or challenges?
I'm sorry, did I skip over you with challenges?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Did I skip? I thought you already we're talking about best practices.
Okay, so I'll go to best practices.
Thank you.
So I would love to share my best practices.
Yes.
I chose 3 of them. The first one, let the student choose what they want to write about. Let them choose what they want to be engaged, what they are mostly committed to. The results that I saw was at my course, it was 70 new articles in Hebrew Wikipedia, which once you examine the subject of the article, you will find a lot of diversion and inclusion of women, minority cultures, forgotten persons, and events. You can definitely see how people express themselves and what they care about, and they get them to be much more engaged. The second best practice is, as more as we reduce ignorance of how Wikipedia or Wiki project works, and we do it in a very specific and concrete way, best we reduce what I call the Wikiphobia. I gathered 5 to 6 common questions that people asking me about, and I answer them straight to the point. I just be very specific answer to what bother people when they think about how Wikipedia works. I also recorded the short video of myself showing how to do very common task of editing, how to upload the picture, images, etc. And students find it to be very helpful because they see me, they hear me, and they see how you do it step by step, about a few minutes, and that really reduced, again, their phobia. In general, as more we reduce the ignorance, the more people know and experience, they change their attitude, and we can see them becoming more active agents of the subject. And the third best practice, as always, create partnership, work with partners. What I did is I took the head of cataloging in the library to be my partner. She's very much enthusiastic about Wikidata, and she leads the Wikidata initiative in the National Library. The digital division at the library is much interested in high usage number to show how they get people to use the library's collections. So once we put the materials in Commons, we can, as I mentioned before, we can see millions of users. So people really get excited about that. And the last thing I did, I paired to the editing program at the college, and we let them edit the article which the librarian writes. So the Hebrew and the linguistic part will be handled by editing student. So partnership.
Okay, thank you, Orly, and we'll turn to Paolo.
Yes. Can you repeat the question, please?
Do you have a word or two about best practices?
Oh yeah, best practices. It's mainly the main challenge actually. So the main best practice I envisage is to better documentation. Is to produce better documentation. We actually are developing a project to develop a set of webinaries, maybe between 5 and 10 minutes, oriented to students in the classroom, so that they can also for students and also for the librarians, teachers, and the other partners involved in the project, so that we don't lose that much time with explanation, because my experience is that when the students are at the classroom, they think they understood it, but they only know the doubts when they get home. So if they have the webinaries available or a better documentation, that will be really the best possible practice. Other thing is to organize it the whole program in very detailed since the beginning and try to get to the schedule. Otherwise, students understand it as I don't know the word in English, as a crazy thing that is not going. It's not a professional thing, and when they realize it's not professional, they kind of lose interest on the project. It's a big challenge for us, which are volunteers, but. We actually ran a set of quizzes and questionnaires this year over a program which involved partly libraries and students, and the feedback was that they understood it was a number of challenges on the schedule, and they didn't react very well to that.
Okay. I think we're going to wrap up. We only have a couple of minutes left, so we're just going to wrap up here by asking everybody to talk about what's next for them in this area. If you have a next thing with education and libraries and Wikipedia. So, Paolo, since you're on the screen, why don't we start with you? Kind of switch it up a little bit. What's next for you?
Sorry, what did you ask?
What's next for you? What's your next next thing?
We are about to run a number of new programs starting in September, where the classes will start. We are going to use the produced material, some online books that we are planning to produce as well for that purpose. In a different program, and also in the program I decided to produce better documentation and webinars or videos or YouTube material, whatever that could help in the projects. But that's what we have next. And of course, going on with the big libraries projects, mainly the National Library, it's a program, and also running the Wikidata conferences and reunion and meetings. And we are planning actually monthly meetings at Miguel Mimoso Library in Lisbon, so to develop a kind of permanent Wikidata community there.
Super. Why don't we go next to Sylvia, since we have the pleasure of being able to hear you. Want to know what's next for you.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Let me make it so that we can see your screen. Hold on just a second. Yes. It says you've started screen sharing.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm not seeing it. There,
Now?
now we're seeing it, yep.
Perfect. So as I think many of us have mentioned, something that is very important for creating a community, so is having shared materials documentation. So what is next for us is that we are working on this Omeka-based website with a lot of materials and like tutorials in different ways, because we know people learn in different ways. Some learn with videos, some other like manuals better, and some like text or narrative. So we have that, and we would like to build a stronger community of the Spanish-speaking Wikimedians, and well, we will call them Wikitecarios, because we want to think about librarians that are interested in Wikipedia, and just make this space available for all to share their experiences or their materials. And because English has been a great barrier for many librarians that wanted to do projects like this. So hopefully this will be the next big thing.
And Orly?
So actually, Paula and Sylvia said exactly my next. So it's building a community of wiki librarians, and working deeply on Wikidata and contribution of content to Wikimedia. I mean, Wiki Commons and Wikidata, but intensively working on building wiki librarians community.
So Kelly, I know your position has wrapped up, but anything more to say about what next steps might be for?
Yeah, so I actually have a slide, the last slide. As part of the service learning project that I did around gender, I created comprehensive training documents so that it could be replicated. Please look at them, use them. The link is on the slides, which is linked in the session on the schedule, I believe. But if you go to Commons and just type in service learning model, it will all come up. There's a slide deck that I use when I present about it. It's text heavy, but there's also an at a glance version for the high points. And if you have any questions, please contact me. Like I said, I'm at the Smithsonian now working on educational programming and outreach programming around the gender gap. So yeah, please contact me and use the documents.
And then we'll conclude with Trudy.
I'll be teaching my course again in the fall, so maybe making some adjustments to it. But I'm also trying to do other outreach. I've worked with the Art Museum on campus to do a Art and Feminism editathon, and so we plan to do that again. And then also things that I know many of you have done in the sort of drop-in sessions for students to learn more about editing Wikipedia. So just trying to expand efforts and collaborations.
Okay. We are unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you all so much for being here and supporting our remote participants as well as our in-person panel. And I want to also especially thank those who've joined us remotely. And Sylvia and Paolo, thank you for sorting through all of your tech issues. We wish you could be here in person, but thank you so much to all of you, and enjoy the rest of your conference.